Okay, it is now recording. Please make sure that it's all set up with me.
Okay.
Yes, I saw it.
Okay.
What about?
My name is Kristin Tubb, and this is my third and final video. This will be my leading video. I'm hosting our LPAC training so that we will be able to have everybody attend the pre-testing LPACs that will be coming up next month. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to pass around a sign-in sheet. This will cover you for 1 calendar year of your LPAC training. So technically, when we start off next year, you'll be ready to roll for the LPACs.
Oh, good.
So, please sign in. If you have technology, you can turn your ringers just off, would be nice. But I know it's after school and everybody has kids and all that kind of stuff in case you need to pick them up.
You're not in it.
I don't always have to be. As long as they can hear me leading your presentation.
You can hear all of that.
Okay, if you have questions that come up, there's sticky notes around, so let's just jot those down on sticky notes as you have a question if we're talking about something, and then we can address those there at the end. You will all also receive your oath at the end of this training, and that's what I will turn into central office so that it can be evidence that you guys have been trained for LPAC. This is different from TELPAS. This is different from TELPAS. ESL is the land of the acronyms. So you'll be attending TELPAS training later on if you've got ESL students in your class. Have you never been?
I've never done any of this.
Really?
And I've had ESL kids, have the ESL thing.
And for how long?
The whole time.
Almost the whole time, almost 10 years.
Wow, that's interesting. We'll not mention where that district is.
I'll mention it.
Okay, we're gonna get started. So this will cover us 2015 and 2016, and you're all now officially part of the Language Proficiency Assessment Committee, otherwise known as LPAC. Okay. I would like for technology to work with me. Okay, according to the Commissioner's rules, and this would be the Education Commissioner's rules, all districts have to establish our Language Proficiency Assessment Committee, our LPAC team, which is why you're here. And ESL programs is what our district has at the moment on our elementary campuses. This is our first year to have a pre-K bilingual class started off at the Early Childhood Center, and then they'll add a grade every year from that, since we last year hit the qualifying with our 4th graders. Your responsibilities include following the Commissioner's rules concerning the State Plan for Educating English Language Learners, or ELLs. There's another acronym for you. It indicates that all school districts that are required to provide bilingual education and/or ESL programs establish and operate a Language Proficiency Assessment Committee. And I lost it. Okay, also please make sure, oh, it switched slides on me, that's what happened. Please make sure that you understand that any student that we talk about in the LPAC committee falls under FERPA, so that we comply with all confidentiality rules. Okay, so like I was saying, all school districts required to provide ESL and operate an LPAC. The district will document the rules and procedures for the group, meeting times, training certificates for each member of the committee. It is also equally important to include that all decisions made by the committee do fall under confidentiality. Well, I'll just stop it. All right, we'll be back.
Now, what you're saying and what we're saying.
Okay, let's try this again. All right, your committee members' responsibilities are to act on behalf of the school district. You're to be familiar with the laws. You don't have to know them by heart. You'll always have something to reference. Maintain confidentiality, like we had spoken about previously, and receive adequate training, which hopefully this will end up being. And then meet as deemed necessary. Since we had a kindergarten teacher trained and myself trained earlier this year for our LPACs, That's why we were able to have an LPAC today, because every so often you have to have those on your incoming students. But now, I can pick any of y'all. Okay, other responsibilities will be included, reviewing and discussing all student data and information. You're gonna meet upon the initial enrollment within the 20 days. And that's why we had to have that one today for kids that had checked in back in the fall. We will then, coming up in February, I believe, meet to determine appropriate assessments for state assessment. Our 3rd and 4th graders, since we house all the ESL students for the district that are not parent denials in 3rd and 4th grade, that'll be a big meeting. So we'll have to have that so that we can turn in our linguistic accommodations. We will also meet at the end of the year for an annual review and for the following year's placement, at which point we will discuss results on the TELPAS, because that does play into our accountability standards. And then, as needed, we will meet to discuss student progress. If you have an ESL student in your class that's not making progress, that's a time when we can meet and talk about strategies that might help them and different things like that. All right. The next slide will discuss the difference between bilingual or ESL. Okay, and this was us last year. If the school district has an enrollment of 20 or more English language learners of the same language classification in the same grade level district-wide, the district shall then offer a bilingual education program for English language learners in pre-K through 5. And so that's why we started it off in the pre-K class this year. Grade 6 will be included when clustered with elementary grades, and so I believe that that's also a qualification that we have right now. The goal of bilingual education is to use the primary language, which would be, whether it's Spanish around here, but when you get into the metro areas, it can, you fall into these different categories: Arabic, Chinese, Mandarin, anything. But you are to provide listening, reading, writing, and speaking instruction, as well as math, science, and social studies instruction. The use of the second language, English, is to provide listening, reading, and writing, or listening, reading, writing, and speaking, as well as content area instruction. Implement the ELPs across the linguistic domains. And so when we get to talking about TELPAS, these are your 4 domains right there, which your ELPs tie to. Does anybody have any questions at this point? Okay, the goal of the ESL program is to enable English language learners to become competent in listening, speaking, reading, and writing in the English language. Acquire the essential knowledge and skills of academic language in math, science, social studies, and language arts. These are once again achieved by implementation of the
ELPs.
Thank you. And those would be listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Okay, we are required by law for these programs to exist and be an integral part of the total school program. They also use state-adapted texts, supplementary materials, and instructional approaches designed to meet the needs of each language learner. And I believe that all of y'all are in here because you are ESL certified teachers. So this is all should be familiar to you. Okay, the composition of our LPAC. The first one discusses a bilingual LPAC, and that would be campus administrator, the professional bilingual educator, professional transitional language educator, which is your ESL teachers, and then the parent of an English language learner participating in the required bilingual program. No parent serving on the LPAC shall be an employee of the school district, which is this is kind of why we run into problems finding parents that are able to assist us. And just to show you the little bit of the differences between the bilingual LPAC and the ESL LPAC. The ESL LPAC is composed of 1 or more professional personnel, campus administrator, and then the parent of an English language learner in the program designated by the school district. So there's none of that transitional or the bilingual educator involved in there. In order to identify our English language learners, our central office, or our central records and registration, have all new enrolling students, parents, complete a home language survey. This is given to them in their native, do they have it in Spanish? Or is it just in English?
It's in both.
It's both English and Spanish for here, so that they're at least able to read that. So, but this is what determines. The consideration of the student's knowledge of English and academic content is taken into account as mandated by law. Once we have one of those identified, you know, if they check Spanish on their home language survey, then we shoot that out to Michelle Howard, who is now in charge of ESL throughout the district, as well as 504 throughout the district. So she gets over there at registration if she can and tests them so that we can get an introductory level for the students. If she can't, she has 20 days to come out and do it on campus. Okay, the LPAC will review the following. We will look at the OLPT, which is the Oral Language Proficiency Test data, the student's academic proficiency level, how they do it in the classroom, their grades, their classroom tests, district checkpoints that we give throughout the year, and English or Spanish reading state assessment. Just because we're only an ESL district does not mean that we cannot offer the state assessment in Spanish, and we're going to encounter quite a bit of that this year. And then the English writing state assessment data as well. The committee will then recommend participation in the ESL program if the test results indicate that English proficiency is not at a required level. So when you have those beginning English speakers that come in, or limited English speakers, that's what all of that information is there. So that will lead us to the end of the year. At the end of the year, the committee will review every single child, kindergarten, first grade, second, third, fourth, for us, that is an ELL, being served in a bilingual or ESL program, the ELL in general education, even if they're parent denials. And then students exited during the previous 2 years that are being monitored, and I believe we have one of those in third grade this year. So obviously our goal is to make these students more and more proficient as they progress through their years in school. The student can be reclassified when he or she meet the exit criteria. A student may only be considered for reclassification at the end of the year. If you happen to have those students that are ESL and special ed, then their criteria is set through their ARD meetings, so that they might have a different exit criteria based on their capabilities. Students in pre-K and kindergarten may not be exited from a bilingual education or English ESL program, so they at least have to stay in for those years. And then also, once the LPAC reclassifies a student as non-LEP, parents must be notified that the student has met the state criteria for exit. The LPAC must monitor the exited students for 2 years. So we kind of still have those supports or those tethers so that we're not just throwing them out there. Okay, just a refresher, we're almost finished, guys. Remember that this committee reviews the progress of your English language learners that participate in a bilingual or an ESL program with parental approval, and who do not participate in a program due to parent denial. If a third grader or fourth grader in the district if their parents did not want them to move campuses from one of the other 3 elementary schools, then they could sign a parent denial, which would keep them housed at their home campus. They will still TELPAS, but they will not have those traditional ESL supports, is how that works. So, to summarize, that's always a good sign. LPAC members must know the laws concerning the English language learners, maintain confidentiality, advocate for the English language learner, contribute to the meeting so that the members can make the best decisions for the student. And I will share with you that the parent that we have attending the LPAC meetings now, he very much pays very close attention to doing what's best for the student, and reflects upon his own acquisition of the English language, and so he's definitely very experienced in that, which is refreshing to have. So, at this time, has anybody written down a question? Well, aren't y'all just the most well-trained batch of kids I've ever seen? Okay, that's all I've got for this. I will be bringing your certificates to you. I'll go ahead and type your names in, and then we'll ship those off to Michelle Howard, and she can have those on record.
I have a question about a student.
Okay, we can talk about that on here, but you and I can talk in a sec. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. What you got?
Do you have to have 2 checks on the survey, on the language survey? It used to be 1.
It should be Spanish.
We didn't consider that years ago, and I haven't
You
done it.
test them, definitely if it's Spanish, but if the student marks Spanish,
And then 1 more.
and, we always test, if they mark either of them Spanish, we test them.
I think that's what we're doing as far as a fail-safe goes, but that's one thing that has been brought up in a lot of discussions on the district level because, there's not anybody necessarily at records and registration on staff that is bilingual right now. So with that new position open, I would assume that either that position or at least somebody that helps out in the office, I think they would, the way that we're growing and our population's growing with the language learners, at least have one person in-house that can speak bilingually so that it's communicated effectively to those parents. A lot of times we get the parents and, they might be limited on their academics regardless of, their status, but so it's harder for them to understand and it's got all these words on it and so it can be overwhelming. So, I would venture to bet that there are some that have been in the program that maybe didn't necessarily need to be in the program, but because of that home language survey, we've got to follow it. Anything else? Okay, thank you. Yes. Hi, my name is Kristin Tubb, and this is the summary conclusion of my leading video. For my leading video, I had chosen to do the LPAC training that I had to hold for my campus. We are in a 3A size district, maybe a small 4A size district. We have 4 elementary schools, a middle school, a junior high, and then high school. But within our elementary schools, we've had such a rise in the population of our English language learners that we had to become a bilingual district this year. So that started off in our pre-K at the Early Childhood Center. And then for the district, all of the ESL students, especially for 3rd and 4th grade, they're trying to house them all here at Marcy Elementary unless they are a parent denial because the parent wants them to stay at their home campus. So that's presented quite a challenge this year, just with the sheer amount of influx of people that we've had. We've received students, quite a few from Puerto Rico, quite a few coming straight out of Mexico. So that's really bumping up our English language learners. This year's LPAC committee did not attend the first LPAC meeting, and so I made sure I spoke with the district LPAC coordinator so that we were now making sure that the LPAC committee meetings are held on our campus just because we're that ESL campus. So that was one of the challenges at the beginning of the year, that they held an LPAC on students from our campus and none of our people were in attendance. You have to have knowledge of those students in order to best, know their entry levels, know their online or the oral language proficiency tests, and all of that. Currently, we have, I believe it's 42 ESL students, and that covers from kindergarten through 4th grade. So, with it being Telpas season, that's, quite a daunting task. I understand the rationale behind housing everyone at one campus. We have the most ESL certified teachers, but at the same time, since it rolls into our accountability ratings, that's a concern that the principal and the assistant principal and I have spoken about before, and we've also touched on that with our PSP lady that we have working with us, her concerns because the ESL students do the Telpos stuff and everything rolls into our accountability ratings. We're trying to be as prepared as we can for that. This week, the teachers of the ESL students went to training for the Telpos, and so the calibration training is what they did this week. So, I'm hoping that their knowledge that they're bringing with them and everything helps make the Telpos season and everything go a little bit more smoothly. Next year we will be the bilingual campus for kindergarten. They started off in pre-K at the Early Childhood Center, so we will be the bilingual campus for next year for kindergarten. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. We have quite a few. I believe right now in 3rd and 4th grade alone, our numbers are at 14. And those are 14 not only ESL students, but students that are Spanish speaking only. So we've had to make quite a few schedule adjustments to our master's schedule so that we can provide them support with a bilingual aide being there with them so that they can help with the translation and everything. They receive a majority of their instruction in English, but they still need that tethering and that support that the ESL aides can provide for them. Out of those, all of those will be taking a Spanish STAR test because of their early acquisition of the English language. So that's going to come into play also because we'll be the only ones giving Spanish tests across the district. Currently, I think my training video, I think it went pretty well. I've been associated with the LPAC committee my first year as a counselor here. I was in charge of LPAC and 504 for the campus. So this year, providing the LPAC training for my campus allowed me to kind of refresh my memory on exactly what all goes on. We have a district coordinator, but she coordinates 504 for the entire district, K through 12, and ESL for the entire district, K through 12. So with our increase of English language learners, her workload is practically doubled. So I didn't mind helping out. The teachers that were trained on the LPAC committee, there was one representative from each grade level as well as our assistant principal. So I think that went well. He has the assistant principal has a very good knowledge base as far as ESL goes, so that's encouraging, and he's a good one that I use to, double check myself on. One thing that I am doing for Telpos this year is each week I'm going to have the teachers responsible for turning in a certain writing sample. That way the writing samples are taken correctly and that they're valid and it's not just a cold write for them. Our PSP had suggested that because of her experience previously with ESL students. So each week they're going to have a different type of the writing forms that are going to be turned in. We have another LPAC meeting coming up this coming Monday. So the fact that we got them to where they're having them on our campus, I think was one of the most important things that I could do as far as an advocate at that time, because we all need to be aware of who they are, how they're learning, where they're located as far as their language acquisition. During my training there were some technical difficulties, which I'm sure happens quite a bit just on this setting. I don't feel nervous about giving any type of presentation to staff or anything like that. I've had quite a bit of experience in that the last 3 years, especially since I moved into the counseling position, but I previously had done professional development training and all that, science trainings, math trainings, and stuff like that throughout my career. So I feel pretty good about my ability to lead. I think, of course, it's going to become easier with practice. There were times during my filming that I thought I was just reading off of the PowerPoint, and actually I was. But at the same time, there's certain parts of the LPAC training that has to be shared, and it is legal, it gets into the legalities and all that kind of stuff of it. So, I mean, that's part of it. I think a PowerPoint is good because it kind of helps you guide. I think one thing that leaders at times do is they read to the people of their presentation off the PowerPoint. And I remember sitting in meetings as a teacher and being like, okay, I can read. But now that I look at it from a different standpoint, being able to have that as a tracking device helped. My time pacing, it went a little quicker than the 45 minutes that I needed. That's why I was giving a little bit of history and all that kind of stuff for the as far as the ESL campus and all that goes for my district. I have written down to talk about the LPAC committee, TELPAS, the ESL campus, bilingual, as well as other challenges. I think the main challenge that we're encountering is when we have a central records and registration building where parents new to the district and everything go to register. And one concern that I've had is that there's none of the people that work there speak Spanish. So when we have so many students coming either from Puerto Rico or from Mexico, we haven't had any experience with any other languages really except for Spanish in our area. We're in West Texas. But I think it would be beneficial in the long run for the district as a whole to make sure that somebody that is employed there is able to communicate in Spanish. They give these home language surveys to the parents in Spanish, but you know, a lot of times you have to consider that sometimes the parents don't have the academic grasp on the Spanish language that they need to read for it and everything. And of course, every situation is different. I just think that we would better service our students and our parents if we were able to make sure there's that bilingual connection there so they could at least ask questions. We ran into one situation at the beginning of the year where one campus was forcing the ESL students to be housed at our school, and they were not explaining to them that if they did a parent denial, they could stay at that school. So I think there's some kinks that need to be worked out. Of course, you don't want to be a complainer or anything like that, but you do want to be proactive in how you communicate with the powers that be in the district so that they understand different concerns and all that kind of stuff that have been risen or that have come up throughout the year. As we head into testing season, I don't think that any of our students at the time, I don't think we're looking at any of them to be linguistically accommodated. I think they're better served, since so many of them are new to the United States, that they're better served in taking a Spanish assessment for the state of Texas. We've been using the checkpoints that we have and been able to finally get those in Spanish. The first semester that was a challenge for our curriculum department because we needed to assess these students in areas that they were learning, but at the same time we weren't providing them with any kind of a Spanish assessment. I think about myself, if I were to move down to South America or Central America and be immersed in the language and the culture and everything, but then it's my first week or so there, or my first year in school, they're going to give me a test in the Spanish language on that grade level. I mean, you think about it, when you flip it around, it would be challenging and frustrating and all that kind of stuff. So I think what we're doing here is a good thing. I hope that my leading video sufficed. Rambling right now probably to get in my time limit. But I do want to say thank you to Lamar University and having the opportunity to complete my certification and everything online. It's been very eye-opening. So thank you.